Hello students, today we are going to study the first chapter of Beehive Class 9 NCERT. The name of the chapter is The Fun They Had. Who had the fun? Let us understand in this chapter. It's a very unique chapter. The context of the video is first we'll get the introduction, then the about the author, then text explanation, and at last the summary. Let's begin. See, in the introduction slide, we can see the schools of the future. According to the writer, what he has imagined lot before. Can you see a boy learning through computers, a girl sitting in a virtual classroom, robotic teachers, and on the screen we can see moving e-text. This was an imagination long before. Now let us see what it is in today's present context. In today's present context, we can see we really have a digital education. We really are having a virtual schools. See, in the pandemic of COVID-19, we are having classes at our residence, at our comfort through online teaching. Can you see ebooks in tablets, children studying in front of the computer, robotic teachers explaining? Let's come to the next point. The introduction. This is a very light story. It is set in the future. It will make all of you love school. This story is regarding school life and how those children who do not go to school and miss school. The setting of the story is in the future when perhaps there will be no school, no books. Now, how those students will miss going to school and will feel that their ancestors, that is the present generation, you all had fun going to school, meeting and helping each other. In the end, we come to know that this is an imagination of a young girl named Margie who comes to know that their ancestors used to go to school. All the children used to study together. She feels that they all had a lot of fun when they went to school. So when we read the story, we feel that school life is very good, and we are fortunate that we have real schools where we go, meet friends, and get a chance to study together. This is exceptionally great thing that we students are having a great time at school. We are lucky ones to have schools like Mount Literacy School and others. Now we every day reach school, we hang out with our friends and have a lot of fun. But students in the future times, they will be studying from home. Like in the present days also, many of the countries had adopted virtual schools where the students have to study online at the comfort of their home. Let us get to know about the author. At first glance, the author looks like X-Men's Wolverine. Have you all seen Wolverine? He moreover looks like him. Like, jokes apart, let us focus on the chapter. Isaac Asimov. He was born on January 2nd, 1920, and he died on April 6, 1992. He was an American writer and professor of biochemistry at Boston University. He was a die-hard science fiction writer. He almost wrote all the books on science fiction only. The Fun They Had is a science fiction story by American writer. Let's see next. Now, in this video, you're going to have two parts in the text. The first part, that is the left hand side of the text, is the text of the original NCERT, whereas the right hand side, the red colored text, are the explanation in easy words so that you can refer to it anytime for better understanding. Let us start reading the chapter. Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary on the page headed 17 May 2157, that is 2157, almost 138 years ahead of our time. She wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book." Now, what is this real book? Margie is the main character of the story. She's a girl of 11 years of age. She writes a diary on the night of 17th May 2157. Actually, they are living in future and we are right now living in 2020. So I told you earlier that the story is set in the future, and that time they don't have real books. They have virtual books which they read on the computer screen, and the books which we have in our time has totally become extinct. Let's read further. It was a very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to, on a screen. Now, the meaning of crinkly means with many folds or lines, something that is crushed. Now, the explanation you can read on your own also. What is being talked about? Margie was thinking that her grandfather told that when he was a little boy, his grandfather had told that there was a time when stories were printed on papers, on real books, the books which we have in our time right now. The pages were yellow, which was found, and the words did not move. The words were standing still. The words were printed. Why it was so astonishing for Margie to see that the words were printed? Because in her time, the words were not printed at all. And then when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it that it had when they read it the first time. See, another astonishing thing for them was the words do not change. The words didn't change at all. When they turned back the page again, the words were same. Whereas in our ebooks or online text, the words keep changing. "Gee," said Tommy, "what a waste! When you're through with the books, just throw it away, I guess. Our television screen must have had a million of books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away." So what's Tommy showing? Tommy is showing his dislike for the printed book. Why? Because the books of his time, that the telebooks or the ebooks, contain a lot of information than the regular textbook which we are having in our time. "Same with mine," said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13. So Margie agreed with Tommy's opinion, and Margie was 11 years and she has not read as many books as Tommy had because Tommy was older to Margie. He was 13 years of age. She said, "Where did you find it?" "In my house," he pointed without looking because he was busy reading in the attic. Now students, do you know what is an attic? An attic is a storeroom which is very much famous in foreign countries. They have a storeroom on the roofs where a person can sit and do a lot of time pass also. So Tommy was doing time pass in the attic, and he got this book and he started reading it. Margie asked, "What's it about?" "School." Margie was scornful. "School? What's there to write about school? I hate school." Now the meaning of scornful is written to show dislike for something. Margie hated school and she was showing all her dislike for the school. Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. He was a round little man with red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. He smiled at Margie and gave her an apple and then took the teacher apart. So, what is the reason that Margie hated school so much? There must be some reasons. See, Margie hated the school very much just because she had a mechanical teacher. Now, what's a mechanical teacher? Mechanical teacher is a machine which teaches you and not that school where we all go. So the mechanical teacher was giving her test after test. All the time the mechanical teacher was giving her test, but Margie was unable to do good in her geography. She was getting worse and worse marks all the time. So her mother has totally shaken her head and called the county inspector for repairing the machine teacher. How was the county inspector? He was a round little man with red face and he was having a box of tools and dials and wires. So let us see. Now the county inspector opened the mechanical teacher. Margie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again, but he knew all right, and after an hour or so there it was again, large and black and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. So once he had opened the computer, that the county inspector, Margie wished that he would be unable to close it back because she did not like the computer. She did not like to study from this teacher, but the man was an expert, and within an hour he had repaired the computer and had closed it and made it ready to teach Margie once again. That wasn't so bad. The part Margie hated most was the slot where she had to put homework and test papers. So Margie really had hated the homework time and the test time taken by the mechanical teacher. She always had to write them out in a punch code they made her learn when she was 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in no time. So what is punch code? Punch code is a mechanical language like Morse code, and the writer's imagination was that in future computers will understand punch code and the students would have to write the homework in punch code and submit the answers to the computer in that language. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted Margie's head. He said to her mother, "It's not the little girl's fault, Mrs. Jones. I think the geography sector was geared a little too quick." So what is the inspector saying? That Margie was getting bad marks in geography because the machine was not working properly. It was geared to a higher level. Geared means it was adjusted, or the speed of the questions were increased. Those things happen sometimes. I've slowed it up to an average 10-year level. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory. And he patted Margie's head again. So, was it Margie's fault? No. It was not Margie's fault that she was doing bad in her exams. Actually, the machine had a very quick response. The machine was asking questions very quickly. It was not up to the level of 10-year-old girl. That is the reason Margie was getting poor marks. So the county inspector who came to repair the mechanical teacher has repaired it and adjusted the level to a age 10 year. Next we see, Margie was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. See how funny it is. And Margie was expecting that the county inspector will take the mechanical teacher for repairing, because they had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had completely blanked out. So why was she thinking? Because once Tommy's history teacher was taken because the history section, the history questions were totally blank for one whole month. That is the reason the history teacher was taken away from Tommy. So she said to Tommy, "Why would anyone write about school?" So Margie is asking again about the school. Now we have understood how much Margie hated school because of the mechanical fault in her teacher. Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes. "Because it's not our kind of school, stupid. This is the old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago." He added loftily, pronouncing the words carefully, "Centuries ago." So Tommy wanted to stress on the time period and said that centuries ago the school were not like the ones they had. So there was a different school from the schools which they had. Margie was hurt. "Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago." She read the book over his shoulder for a while, then said, "Anyway, they had a teacher." Sure, they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man. So Margie was hurt. Margie was feeling bad. And they were saying that, "I don't know what kind of school they had, but whatever it is, at least they had a teacher, and I don't like this kind of teacher." But Tommy reassured that no, they had a different teacher. Their teacher was a man. There was not a teacher like our mechanical teacher. So students, we will continue the lesson in the next video. Till the time, I hope you're going to take the whole benefit, the most benefit from the read paragraphs which I have given you the explanation. If it is difficult for you to understand the original text, you can anytime refer to the text which is given on the right hand side in red colors. And I hope we'll see you again in the next video. Thank you and have a great day.